Hi, everyone. This one's a little bit of a different episode. We're very excited about it, but it is a little bit different to what we usually do. Actually, it's very different.
Yeah. Well, it's like a, what would you call these sorts of episodes? Like when
Crossover.
a crossover. Yeah. It's a crossover app.
We're a big fan of Dyl Friends, the podcast.
Yeah.
Dylan has his own incredible imperfect story, which he shared on his podcast. And yeah, we've been chatting to Dylan for a while and love the idea of doing a joint show together and launching it on both our different podcasts.
Yeah. This is just a one-off.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just, we literally went into his studio, which was incredibly way better than ours. Love this, Josh. Don't get me wrong. But like, he's got this incredible setup.
And it's the size of like 2 tennis courts.
Yeah. We just walked in. We were just like mouths open, just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Trying to be really cool, just going,
nice space. Yeah. Nice space, mate. Yeah. So he was very nice. He hosted and he ran the whole thing. And
then we actually, as you'll hear in this episode, the first half of the episode it's kind of like his podcast. He's interviewing us about our journey to how we've got to where we are with the Imperfects. And halfway through, we sort of flip it and it becomes our episode, which is a Vulnerabilitea House with him. And my goodness, mate, I'm so happy we did that because it's a beautiful, a really touching and at times very difficult thing for Dylan to talk about. But gosh, he's wonderful. Yeah. And he does it beautifully.
He is. Well, hope you enjoy our hangout sesh with Dyl Friends.
Wasn't the point of this to tell people that he drops a massive C-bomb a few times?
Oh, was it?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's okay. Yeah, cool. And yes, Josh is right. The point, we wanted to give you a language warning. That was the point.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. There's just a couple of big
C words.
Big sweet words. A couple of big C words late in the episode.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter when they are, but they're
there.
Yeah.
They're there.
Yeah.
So if you don't like that word, just don't listen.
Throw your phone out.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. We'll do that. Cool.
Okay.
Enjoy.
Yeah. Gentlemen, Josh, Ryan, Hugh, welcome to our podcast today. This is it's a collab.
It is. We've never done a collab before.
Yeah.
So this is exciting
to
for
me,
us.
this is like when you're watching Melrose Place and Brandon rocks up. 90210. It's like a crossover episode.
I've never watched that before.
Neither.
Yeah.
Nah, neither. I hate those shows.
Me too.
What else do you hate?
We'll get into it today. We've already discovered a few. Hey, boys, thanks so much for joining us. I've been so fucking excited for this episode for a long time. Hugh, obviously, we had an ep about 6 months ago.
Yeah,
probably a bit longer.
This episode, I reckon we said, maybe a year ago we said we'd do it. And it's purely my admin skills. That's the reason it's taken so long.
You're a busy man.
And also, I'm also quite disorganised and not very good with my calendar, so that's also why.
Well, I wasn't very good. I sent a message to my video producer today on my calendar. He didn't get it. So we've been a little bit delayed. We've just had a makeshift sort of set up here. But I'm blessed to have you in and to have the show today. It's great to meet you both. First time meeting you both as well.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, I'm trying to hide my envy of your space. Yeah. Like I'm trying to act cool.
Tell me how good it is.
It's so nice in here. Like
what about the light? No one said anything about the light yet.
Love the light box.
Yeah.
Love the plants. Look so healthy.
Yeah, I water them.
Oh, like everything is so nice.
Yeah.
I mean, our space is really nice. Like
hardwood.
It's pretty good, but like I feel shame because it's my office that we record in, and it's nowhere near as good as this. So
I don't think anyone in the world's got an office this big.
Yeah. I feel like I'm at like
keep going.
Google Cathedral. Like I'm surprised you guys aren't on Segways.
We've got electric scooters.
Of course we do.
They're just there. The Imperfects. Now, I'm glad you clarified that because it could be called the Imperfects if you didn't clarify. Has that been brought up? I'm perfect.
I've never thought about that. So true.
It's like,
is
that what?
If it was presented as two different words,
Yeah.
But we have it as one. So
just in case there's a space there.
In a podcast obsessed with puns, I have never thought about that.
Yeah.
It would be very off-brand for us to call it Imperfect.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. How did it all come about? Because obviously we've got Hugh with the Resilience Project. That's how we met through all your incredible work with everyone. You got your brother, who's a star. He's actually my favourite Van Colenberg now. After listening to
don't know what I've done.
After listening to his episode on the Imperfects. And your relation, like, how did that?
You just
like,
looked at me like, now who the fuck are you?
No.
what are you doing here?
No, obviously
When
a
you on
massive
Rove,
fan.
like 100
A
years
massive fan. I didn't want to say that, but I fucking love Rove. Like, I did love Rove. Love everything you've done. But this, like, connection, how did that come about? Like, you guys were obviously born in the same family.
Yeah,
so
we know each other through parents.
Birth and stuff.
Through having the same
Yours is not through birth.
No, we are not birth brothers.
No. Yeah.
I mean, that would be an incredible twist to the story if we found that out.
Yeah.
Holding it off for season 4.
We'll announce it here.
No, so essentially, our first meeting was I was just in a cafe and I was just working away on my laptop, and well, I mean, you can read all about it actually in Hugh's new book, which is coming out soon.
Yeah, there's a whole chapter on Ryan. Really.
Really?
When I say it is a chapter on Ryan and our friendship.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. I can't.
Can we
believe
get
it.
a
Stoked?
Are we allowed to give a sneak peek in the new book? Because like, does that mean the old book is irrelevant now? Like everything I learned from that, do I just throw that out? Is that like you just?
No, it's a good question because the book publicist that I have is very blunt and very direct, and she said to me when I first said, "Oh, we're thinking about a second book," she said, "But presumably if they've read your first book, they're happy and they don't need any more. So why is there, what's the,
Wow.
oh, okay, well then we could, it's
like
also a lot of confidence in your work. Like,
Yeah.
fixed it.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
no more work. Just need one
go
book.
home.
Yeah.
Read it again.
It's like saying to like George Lucas, well, we had the war and the stars. Like, what else do you want to do? You know? Oh, I reckon there's more story. All right. See what you can do. But this is people have already seen it. Yeah. They know. Okay, sorry.
No, that's right. No, so yeah, one of the chapters is about, well, the book's all about the things we need to let go of in order to feel happier. A lot of people are probably quite similar, but like, I was okay. I was getting by. And then when COVID happened, I realized a lot of things about myself, like things I was hanging on to that a lot of us do, I think. You know, things around shame, which you've talked about on your podcast before, shame, expectation, ego, perfection, fear of failure, addiction to social media. I realized all this stuff. In fact, to be honest, I started seeing a psychologist for the first time in my life. And every time we'd have a session together, I had a little journal with me and I'd write notes and I kept realizing the stuff that she kept saying, you need to let go of that. Like, so I started like, there's things I need to let go of. And when the kids had gone to bed and my wife Penny had gone to bed, I would like study it and like read my notes again, like I was sort of studying a study of myself. And I remember putting it away one day in the drawer thinking, well, no one can find this journal. Like that'd be so embarrassing. But the longer COVID went on, the more I thought, do you know what? Like the stuff in my journal is actually very relatable. I think people do need to hear this. And that was kind of why the second book happened.
Unreal.
Basically. So it's the inner workings of my journal from my psychologist, which is bloody personal stuff, but I hope it helps people, I guess.
Mate, it will. It's unbelievable.
But the chapter on Ryan really is, I used to see, I don't know if I've told you this, but so I lived in Fitzroy about a block away from Ryan for, 5 or 6 years and we didn't know each other, but I'd see him a fair bit and go, oh God, there's Ryan Shelton. I'd get very excited because I am a big fan. So
what's changed? No, you started doing this fucking weird mental health podcast.
And I'd see him often in cafes. I'd walk and I'd go, there's Ryan Shelton. You'd always be working on something. And I think it just looks so cool. Just that looks cool. What a cool life working in cafes on a laptop. And one day I saw him in a cafe as Archie's in Fitzroy, and I walked in. I went, I'm going to hopefully not make a tourist, but I'm going to sit near him. And I could not have sat any closer. If I could have touched him very easily from where I was sitting.
Yeah. Which is like at Archie's, like that's. I mean, pre-COVID, you do sit very close to people. Like
I could have chosen a seat on the other side of the cafe, but I did.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, and we just started talking through. So we just had a conversation there. I think I'd said what a big fan I was.
You know, every now and again, someone will say something really lovely like that. But what struck me about it was when I asked Hugh what he did, and he explained what he was doing at the Resilience Project. I'd never heard of the Resilience Project before. And he told me that, and I was like, "Oh, whoa!" You know, all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh, well, actually, I want to find tell me more about that." Like that was really interesting, and we had a little mini conversation about it. Didn't last long, and then we awkwardly went back to our own lives, 30 centimeters apart.
But I also said, I can't remember the wording exactly, but I think I said, "Oh, do you mind if I grab a photo? I think my girlfriend, my wife now, would really love it." But it wasn't for her.
It wasn't for her. It had nothing to do with it.
Well, so then, then we sort of bumped into each other a few times around the area.
Once was right outside Ryan's apartment, and I didn't realize that's where we were. And I was like, I had my back to your front door, and I was like, "Gee, you're really hanging around for a long chat here. This is awesome." But
and you had like this weird periscope device, which I don't know why you had that, recording equipment, and lube. Strange box of tricks.
You don't judge.
Yeah, I just everyone's different. Good for him. And so then like maybe like a year or two passed.
It's like maybe 3 years.
Was it maybe 3? Yeah. And in that time, then I went through my own like kind of whether you want to like enlightenment, in awakening of some sort, or the beginning of what that turned out to be. And I read the book, The Courage to be Disliked, which, I mean, lots of things have kind of changed my life in the last 3 years or so, but that book feels like was one of the first things that like really I really connected with it. It was the first time I'd read something where I was like, God, everything in this book, I just want to be able to take all the lessons and teachings from this book and apply it to my life. And if I can do that, I just know I'll be on a way better path. Not that I was necessarily unhappy or anything, but it was just ticking all the boxes for me. And I remember thinking, God, I mean, it would just be great to have like a place that I could go to every week and someone just talks about all the lessons in this book. And then so it's like constant reminders. I was like, that would be great. And then I was like, I guess that's why people would go to church. Like I was like, that's religion. That's when people like connect with religion. Like that's what that is. So I kind of had that moment and I started thinking about like my own life, and I started thinking like, what am I really doing here? Like, what am I doing? And like I'd done some really fun things and things that I was proud of. And, I was on Rove, which I was a huge fan of, like before I was on it. And, I got to be on radio with friends and work with my friends on a bunch of different shows. And I'd had like, quote unquote, like success. But the thing that I'd always really wanted more than anything was to have my own TV show that I would write and I'd be the star of, and people would think I was brilliant and I'd win the Logie and fucking whatever, That was like always the thing that from when I was a teenager, that was the thing that I always thought, well, that's the thing that if I get that, then I've made it and then I've achieved my goal and I'm happy and whatever that means. Hadn't really thought about the happiness part of it. I just thought about like, well, that's what I want. I guess that's what anyone like me wants. I want a Seinfeld show, And so anyway, so I'd read this book and I was with my girlfriend at a restaurant in Dalesford actually. And I was just thinking, I was like, I'd spent like years pitching different shows to people, writing scripts, developing ideas. And I'd gone through like 3 or 4 different ideas and nothing had ever come from it. And I thought, okay, well, if that's what I really want, I've put a lot of time, mental energy into getting this TV show. I probably should think about how I'll feel if I get it. And if I get everything that I supposedly want, everything that I think that I want that will make me happy, how will I actually feel if I get all those things? So I kind of did this like for the first time ever, tried to kind of visualize myself having achieved those things. And this is coming from having read this book, The Courage to be Disliked. So I was just sitting there, I was like, okay, if I'm really honest with myself, what do I want at like the best case scenario? Like dream big, think what's best case scenario? So I thought best case scenario is I win the Emmy for like best comedy of the year and I'm on like the front cover of the LA Times or whatever as like comedy genius, Shelton does it again or something like, whatever the fuck it says. Big photo of me. Essentially, that had, not that I'd ever thought that I'd wanted that, but I was like, well, I guess best case scenario, that's what I'm working towards here. I want people to think I'm brilliant. And so I thought about that, thought about like really visualized myself on the stage at the Emmys accepting the award from Will Ferrell because he's a huge fan, so he'd want to present it. And
Jerry Seinfeld in the front row, standing ovation.
It's like, you've done it, you're brilliant. I love you. I'm Jerry Seinfeld. and so I thought about that, and then I thought, and I was like, okay, I'm there, I'm on the stage, and I was like, fuck, I don't care. Like, I don't really care. It was this, it sounds weird to say, because of course I would care. Of course that would be cool. But for the amount of weight I'd put on it, I just didn't really give a shit about it. And I was like, well, that's a bit of a problem. If I'm doing all this work for this thing and I'm not actually going to care about it if I even get it, then what am I even doing? Like, why am I doing this? And it was just this real big moment of like, I'm going for the wrong thing here. And I was like, what do I do? What do I do with this? The first person I thought of, this is years later, honestly, the first person I thought of was Hugh. I don't know why. I think I was like, I need to speak to someone who's not just who I didn't think was just going to say, oh no, don't worry about it. You'll be, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. You just do the show, blah blah blah. Someone who wasn't going to brush it aside. Someone who was also non-partial, unbiased. And because of what Hugh does, I felt like he was a safe space to go into. So I literally messaged him on Instagram and just said, hey, would you be up for catching up? Like catching up for a coffee.
I said no.
Yeah,
flat out.
Yeah, and I said, you fucking know where your bread is buttered, mate. No, and then he wrote back and he said yeah, and so I caught up with him and I sort of told him all this, like told him where I was at, and I think you're a little bit shell shocked. You're a little bit like, whoa,
Yeah.
what a fucking friend show.
I thought we were just going to be surface level friends here.
Yeah. But he was great and spoke to me about Ben Crow and about like purpose and about like how Ben
who you've had on the podcast, haven't you?
Yeah. So you talked about how Ben had helped you, with your sort of finding meaning and purpose. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And then then I think you also said you should read Andre Agassi's book. I think you said you should read Open. So I went and read Open. And
Have you read that?
I haven't.
So it's essentially like the bigger, higher stakes version of what I just described. But he got it. He got to the pinnacle. He won Wimbledon. Long story short, he gets everything that he supposedly ever wanted and doesn't give a shit. So I read that book and I was like, okay, this is clearly a common thing for people. So then I met with Hugh and I said, oh, do you reckon... Because you described Ben Crow as someone who meets with like big athletes, coaches athletes and CEOs and like, consults with people, like important people. So immediately I'm like, well, I'm not one of those people. But I said to Hugh, I was like, not that Hamish Blake, who's a good friend of mine, worked with him for a long time, known him since high school. Hamish is very curious, obviously really successful and talented person, but I was like, I reckon Hames would be someone who'd be really interested to talk to Ben just from a curiosity point of view. So I said, do you reckon Ben would be up for meeting with Hames? Like, I haven't asked Hames yet. He might not be interested, but I think that would be a cool thing to surprise Hames with, So you went and you asked Ben.
Yeah, I asked Ben about, and he said, yeah, happy to. But do you think Ryan would like me to meet with him? And I said, come to think of it, definitely. Wow. And he goes, I'll just meet with Ryan then.
Yeah.
So and I told you, and you're like, what do you mean? Why would he want to meet with me? You're so shocked.
Yeah, I was like, what? I'm only me. Like, why would he waste his time, genuinely? Why would he waste his time wanting to meet with me? I was like, of course, I'd love to. So I met with him, had a coffee for an hour, like he does. Changed my life.
Life changed. Next.
Life changed. Didn't get the jumper grab that Hugh got. Hugh got the lean across the table and jumper grab from Ben.
Pretty awesome.
Didn't get that. All good. Not bitter. But he spoke to me about like Brené Brown, about shame, about vulnerability, about purpose. Sent me on a little path and got me to think about that. And really quickly, I figured out what my shame was. and why it was like holding me back, and thought about purpose. I won't go into that because you can, if you want to hear more about that, I did a whole episode on our podcast.
Yeah, I've listened to that. It's
about
unbelievable.
that.
Yeah.
So that's essentially how we met. And then when I told Hugh my shame story, that's when Hugh was like, I reckon we should do a podcast where we get other people who have got their own story to share, and we should host it together, is what Hugh said.
Yeah. But then we realized pretty quickly that we needed someone to do all the technical stuff. And I thought about Josh, but to be deep down, I was thinking, oh my God, Ryan Shelton and Josh Van Colenberg are going to love each other so much. I can't wait to introduce them. And it was almost like an excuse to introduce them. And the first time they met, we met at the pub in the Napier. And Josh, you were coming off like a 4-day.
Yeah, I've just met Josh, and we've already spoke about 2 benders that he's he told me one before you guys were here, and now there's another one being brought up. So get this guy away from me.
It's not an accurate representation. He's a lovely, responsible.
I'm getting a real bad rep because you mentioned this the other day.
We're joking, obviously.
No, I think it was after Golden Plains on Meredith or something like that.
Oh, same time.
Different occasions. Okay. Different Golden Plains on Meredith.
Yeah,
I only have one bender a year.
Okay. Meredith.
No, and so. And I really didn't put a very good...
Your body was there.
But I barely spoke for the whole night. And I was also very nervous because I'm like a huge fan of Ryan's work. I still am, as opposed to Hugh, who... So I was naturally nervous to meet Ryan, and also I had about a quarter of a brain. So I didn't put a good foot forward. But I think they had no one else to do the technical stuff, so I got the job anyway.
How good.
Yeah, but you obviously felt that, but it didn't come across like that. I was just like, oh, this is Hugh's boring brother.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's good. Yeah, well done.
But then when the podcast started, it was just Ryan and I were chatting with guests, and then Josh was in the background setting stuff up and would say stuff that was really good. And I think, God, you should have a microphone. It took us, 4 or 5 episodes to organise that, but then eventually Josh got one. And then, you heard his episode the other day where he talked about heartbreaking thing that happened to him when he was at a party. Another episode out drinking again when he was a fair bit younger. And then he seems to have become everyone's favourite person.
Oh, definitely. No, he dominates, and
has like a reputation now of asking incredible questions. Happened yesterday. We recorded an episode yesterday. The person we were interviewing, they said, "Oh, what an insightful question."
How good is that?
And I was like, fucking Josh, he's doing it again.
Well, I applaud you for that, but I also, just so you know, you've given, our producer Sam a lot. He's like, well, their producer has a mic now. Like,
yeah.
Does that mean I get a mic?
Definitely needs a mic.
So, I think we're going to have to start.
Well, do you want to audition with an insightful question now? So we can see if it's good.
He'll have a lot to say. Hey, before we keep talking as well, I can't not bring this up because we have spoken about how famous Ryan is, and obviously he's done a lot of incredible things in his life.
Okay? We can stay with it if
you will stay with it. We will. But I'm sure because you have such a big impact on people, you would remember every occasion, surely.
You mean like person to person?
Yeah, definitely. You would.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm going to take you back to a time when you were touring. I think it was in Victoria with Hamish and Andy, and you spoke. You went to Ripon Lee Estate, and you were filming there for Ripon Lee Estate. You obviously remember that.
Yep.
And you would definitely then remember Mary, that was at the Ripon Lee Estate, who she was taking you guys on the tour. It was a massive fan. Mary Bonza, you would remember her.
Mary Bonza Beauty.
Yeah, Bonza Beauty. And you had a phone call with Mary's son, who was a massive fan of yours. And you got on the phone, which you remember.
Yeah.
And he was a young boy, massive fan of yourself. His name was Sam, so it's not me. Sam's grown up now.
Oh!
Sam's grown up.
You're the Sam from the phone call I don't remember.
Yes. Sam's grown up. That's Mary's little boy. That's Mary Bonds. That's him.
Wow. So
all these years.
How old were you when that happened, Sam?
It would have been 16. You might need to reiterate through your mic.
Okay,
yeah,
you were 16.
16.
So you need a bloody microphone, Sam.
Yeah, he needs one. He needs a microphone. That's Big Sam.
Are we about to hear this or see this now, or is that what you?
No, that's him. That was just the phone call.
Okay,
That's Big Sam.
To be honest,
he changed his life.
To be honest, I genuinely do vaguely remember that. Like I do remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't happen often to me. I'm not getting lots of those at the moment. So, I hope it wasn't too disappointing.
So you, we don't have a microphone, but
He said you were brilliant.
Yeah, take my seat.
Yell it out.
amazing. So your mum worked at Ripponlea Estate, and you're a big fan. So you said, and obviously your mum knew that Ryan was coming through that day, and said,
Yeah. She said, Ryan's coming through with the crew. I think I can't remember who else was there, but some of the other Rove crew, you were doing some skits there. And and she just called me. She goes, I've got Ryan. I go, fucking hell.
A lot of posters on his wall of you. It was a bit weird as well. So
posters.
Yeah.
Well, I went to St Leonard's.
Hamish and I went to St Leonard's. Okay.
I was in Mr. James's meeting.
Oh, Bernie.
yeah,
There we
Bernie
go.
James.
Wow.
There we go.
Wow.
Old time. So
What a
that's Big
small world.
Sam. That's little Sam that you.
Big Sam or Little Sam? I know both. I know two. Oh, well, lovely to see you. Speak to you again.
Oh shit! So hey, big theme of your show is obviously everything, really. Resilience, opening up. You got the vulnerability. You got everything.
Josh, can I? I hope this isn't awkward, Josh.
Yeah.
Josh has got.
Well, but can you get naked?
Yeah, get naked. It's not the first time I've been naked here.
It depends on what episode Dyl listened to, because I have a feeling we spoke about it before. It's a different episode. to one you're
what
thinking
episode
of.
did you listen
The fitness.
Oh, okay.
How
Okay.
fucking vulnerable are you?
We've done two.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
a
There's
vulnerable
another
beast.
one.
Yeah.
Well, Josh just did this episode, which that was where it became apparent that Josh was the actual talent on our podcast.
You sent
And it
me
was-
the wrong one then.
Did I?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Okay. So there's another episode where Josh was, you would have been 21, 22, just met his now wife at a party with her friends. In fact, you tell the story. It's your story.
Yeah, I had just met, my now wife. We're at this party. I didn't know anyone except her. We'd only been going out for like weeks at this stage.
I'm already getting
How's this for a story?
already
This
getting
is
nervous.
an amazing
Yeah.
story.
I was so nervous and just generally like trying to be cool. And it was I was told it was a dress up party. So I dressed up.
It's just the worst start to a story, isn't it?
And I got there and no one else was dressed up. But I was dressed as, luckily I was dressed as like a kind of 50s James Dean thing. So it was sort of, and it turned out to be a really arty crowd. So they just thought, they were like, cool jacket. And they just thought I was like pretty cool. So I managed to dodge the first bullet there. And then we were standing around a fire. I was just having a beer with like about 8 people I'd never met before. Soph wasn't there. She was off with her friends. And this guy reached across and he saw that I had like a little notebook in this jacket, and the guy reached across and grabbed the notebook, and my heart just like sank. And I knew at that point I was in a band and trying to write music, and I knew they were lyrics that I'd been like workshopping and trying to work
I
out.
fucking hate this guy already.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he grabs it and he's
It was
like,
me.
It was Sam. And he's like, what is this? And started flipping through it, and he started laughing. He's like, oh my God. And I panicked, and I was like, I don't know, this is my mate's jacket. I just borrowed it because I thought it was a fancy dress thing. And he was like, I think these are like poems or lyrics or something. And he started reading them out, and everyone started laughing. And then they handed the book around the circle, and everyone had a go at reading a page and taking the piss out of it. And it came back to me, and I just had to play. I'm getting like nervous thinking about it. I just like was like, well, I got to play along. So I ended up like reading out my own lyrics and taking the piss out of myself in front of these blokes. And I told this story on the podcast, and I thought Hugh had sent you that episode, and I was rummaging around last night.
He's just produced a notebook.
Is that the actual notebook?
That's the actual notebook.
Wow.
Josh. Oh, fuck.
I feel so special.
This is like...
Can you hold it up for the camera?
Call the
just so-
Smithsonian. Like, this needs to go into a museum.
Call the what? What is it?
And I had
Smithsonian.
planned
It's an
that
American
like I would potentially read some of it, but I read it this morning and I'm still too... I
Oh,
can't.
you have
I'm
to
sorry.
read some, man. Oh, I mean, sorry. I listened to a lot of your podcasts this week, and vulnerability is a choice.
Yes. Yep. False vulnerability doesn't count.
Does
Yep.
not count if we
Yep.
force it. So do it if you want.
Yeah.
Knowing it would make great content.
No, yeah. I don't know. Like, I think...
Is it best like kept a secret?
Well, I just
pretty
think you
interested.
need to be prepared for us to take the absolute shit out of you.
Can I just ask something there? Like,
Yeah.
with that, wow. And I suppose like in all vulnerability and just life in general, like you look back at that moment and it's extremely like embarrassing. You know, you said it yourself, it's embarrassing. But you could probably look back at that now, and I hope you do, and I'm sure you do, how like proud of yourself you are that you actually did that. Like in terms of you, not the way you reacted to it, sorry, but like you were actually writing your own lyrics, you were doing these cool things. Like do you look back now and you're like, fuck, that was...
Well, I think the sad, I guess the everlasting not tragedy, it's not a tragedy, but for me personally was that I never really tried to write lyrics again.
Fuck.
Because I was like, I wrote a lot of music and I was in bands and still am in a band and happily write music and melodies and stuff. But I just never had the confidence to try and write lyrics after that point. And I was actually talking to the guy who I'm in a band with, who's a singer who does write lyrics, the other day, saying I want to start again. So I've had a kid. I feel really happy, content, and for many reasons, the podcast, just many things. I feel just like a completely different person. Like it's like 14 years ago, 13 years ago, something like that. So I'm such a different person. I'm like, I should really just for the pleasure of writing, try and write some poetry or write something and just see what happens, just for my own pleasure, and try as a completely new person now. Really.
That's awesome. Love that, man.
The Weary. The band's called The Weary. WEARY. The Weary.
Yeah.
If you want to look them up.
I can't believe
definitely.
you got that notebook. How did you find that?
I had I was going through an old box of stuff about a year ago, and I had this memory of thinking, I think I saw it in the box, and just kept going. And then, last night I was like, because I thought you'd heard that story, I'm like, geez, that could be quite entertaining to read out some stuff. But then
Have you looked through it?
I have.
How do you feel about it?
It's pretty.
You don't have to if you don't.
So,
Definitely
how old
there
is
could
this
be some
notebook?
real fire lyrics.
What's that?
Yeah,
say?
exactly.
I'm actually, I've got more confidence in you than you think. Like these can be some real...
Yeah. How
Actual
old is the
fire.
notebook?
The notebook it would have been 2010. So it's 11 years old.
So how old were you then?
I was about 86, so 24.
24.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few at the start that are just, all right. Telling me the train's departed gives no rest for the broken-hearted. An empty station, windy and cold, is a lazy soul content to grow old.
Whoa.
It's awesome.
How can you That's awesome.
Yeah, but you can so understand how like a 24-year-old, but like, you know, some douchey 24-year-old or douchey any age person would just like, doesn't matter what it, you know, it could be like Bob Dylan and they were going to give it shit before they even read it.
100%.
Yeah, because it's the game. Yeah. that's the game.
It's
Isn't it even
that's
as
true.
well like with anxieties and whatever we're talking about here, like someone, you know, I could tell you one thing I'm anxious about now and you'd be like, that's the stupidest thing ever. Like that has no thing, or you might agree with me. But like, for example, last week, a massive insecurity of mine and a massive, massive anxiety of mine was shaving my head. So like ever since I was a kid, I was just bagged about having a big forehead, like receding hairline, like all these things. And it's funny as fuck. I get it. I do have a big forehead. It's actually quite funny. Like my mates would rip into me. But it was just something for me where like I was not insecure about anything but that.
Yeah. I
And
feel
then-
like right now it's like when someone says something about something
And
it's
you
like,
can't stop looking.
I just want, I'm just keeping eye contact. Like I don't want to look up.
Very big.
I did the opposite. I was going, okay, I don't know.
But like for me, it was like one of those things that people could necessarily say, oh, that's nothing, get over it. But that didn't make me feel like it was any less.
It's real for you.
It's real.
Yeah.
And it didn't move on to that. And again, listening to the podcast last week about levels of vulnerability and like, there's some big things, there's small things. This for me was like shaving my head last week for my mate who had chemo. So it was a reason to do it. And I was like, fuck, I've got to do
That's
this.
Sam Doherty,
Sam
is it?
Doherty,
Yeah.
who's going through chemo. And I don't think anyone would have known like how fucking hard that was for me to do. But like I look back now and I was like, that was, maybe what we'll get into later is a lot bigger story and you'd think that that's harder, but this was nearly as big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I get it.
What you're saying about those lyrics then, like for us, they're incredible lyrics. I love them, but I can imagine how hard it is for you to like read it out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And weirdly, now I've done it, it doesn't feel that big.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Exactly.
this
the
is
same.
still big, but it feels better.
But it feels, it feels okay. It feels like it's not shameful. Yeah.
It's really nice. I really like those lyrics.
Yeah.
Oh, they're
And I really like
on
the
my forehead.
And on your forehead, I'm not making this up. I thought already when I first saw it, I wish if I shaved my head, it would look like that.
Yeah.
No.
I did.
Yeah.
I did think that.
Thank you.
Let's do it. Let's see what happens.
It won't look like that. That's all.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. We've got it out. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, as soon as you were saying that, I was like, fuck, that's exactly how, people say, like, that's awesome, but it doesn't take away until you, I don't know, keep practicing the vulnerability of doing it.
Yeah.
It's addictive, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah,
it really is.
Because it's not like, I mean, like whether or not we all, like if we all say, well, I think, whether or not we all say they're great lyrics or not,
That doesn't really.
it doesn't really matter.
No.
I don't think. It's more just that, I mean, that's huge
That's
for
probably
you
the
to
best
read
of the
them
book, to be honest.
Yeah. But like that's huge because it's not, the quality isn't necessarily, it's more just like what you think will happen
Once they're read out
once
again.
they're read out. And then to like any sort of vulnerability, all you can think about is like the worst case scenarios if you read it out.
Yeah.
And then when you do it, very, very unlikely that's actually going to happen.
Yeah.
Like there's the time, like there's we did an episode when you started talking about how you would take what you called hairpingers.
Oh, yeah. Because I take hairpingers to make my hair not
You
fall
got
out.
the finasteride.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to do that.
Yeah.
You don't need to. Yeah.
But I should do that. But I think the hair loss thing is so fucking,
Yeah,
it played on my mind a lot. Like,
Yeah.
it really did. Yeah.
Oh, so like we're doing this episode, Hugh's talking about this and my heart's just racing.
Yeah.
As I'm listening. I'm like, fuck. And then I just sort of say, it's like, well, I'm on this podcast. We've got to fucking model vulnerability here. And then I just sort of said, I take them as well. I hadn't told anybody. I've been taking them for like years and years and years.
What did I say just before?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
When you left to go to the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
When you left to go to the bathroom, I said, man, I love how thick Ryan's hair is.
Yeah.
I
mean,
love it.
I would. So I
literally
would
think
like
that.
Yeah. So, but I had that same fear that you had about reading out those lyrics. I had that. Like to anyone else, like who fucking gives a shit? I'm thinking, it doesn't matter. But to me, it was like this great shame secret that if people find out, it's like embarrassing.
Yeah.
or
And can we be very clear and just give directions on what the drug is, because it's the most inbox message I get.
yeah.
It's
Oh,
yeah.
what the
Same.
hair tablets
Yeah.
are on. So
Yeah.
finasteride.
Finasteride, yeah.
Finasteride.
Yeah.
You go to
Yeah.
your doctor, you
Go
say
to
I'm
go
going
get it.
bald, and they write your script for finasteride.
And you can get some serum as well, I think, for because not that I've done any research into this at all, but like this is common knowledge, obviously. But like the finasteride tablet stops the hair loss,
Yep.
but then the serums regrow the hair.
That's it.
So you need to apparently.
I don't do this.
Yeah.
I don't have the serums.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
But it's
don't
it's
need it.
amazing.
You don't need it,
Yeah.
that's
Well, I
why.
probably don't need. But
Yeah.
but like what is the point of me telling that is that after I told it, because like the things that I would do to keep it a secret, I would travel. I would drive half an hour, 45 minutes to the same pharmacy to get my finasteride, because for whatever reason I didn't want to risk word getting out to other pharmacies. Yeah. So I was like, for some reason, I was like, is Shane in today? as if like Shane was keeping my secret. Like he doesn't care. And then but as soon as I said it, I was like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And the amount of messages I got about that, like what Hugh just said about like, what was it? I want it for me. I want it for my boyfriend or whatever. It's constant, still coming in. And you realise it's like it is such a common thing.
Not something Josh has to worry about.
No, Josh, you've got great hair, man.
But you can fall like I'm not balding, but
good on
I
you.
thought
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, okay. Awesome, man.
Yeah, cool. Tell us more about it.
That was just for people who don't know what I look like. But when I was 19, I thought I was, and I panicked and got in a shame cycle about my hair, and I took those something.
Because you would have seen my hairline and go, I'm heading in that
Yeah, and so I
direction.
took them for like a year when I was really young, just purely out of panic and shame and nervousness.
When I want to tell a story quickly because I was going to write it in the book, but it got cut out. I don't know why the publishers didn't like it, but
Bonus.
I was my first day of uni. Like I'm quite nervous about. I didn't know anyone, new friends. I sat down in this lecture theatre, and there was a group of about 7 or 8 girls that sat directly behind me, a little bit to the left, sort of just off the side, just behind me. And I was looking at them, going, "They look like nice people. Maybe I'll be friends with them." I'm getting quite nervous, like, how do I turn around and start a conversation? Oh God, this is making friends. And then I heard one of the girls go, "Oh my God, look at that guy's hair." And I was listening to him, I didn't know to him about me. And she goes, "He'll be bald before we get a degree." And I was like, "Oh God, please be a balding guy in front of me." And I'm looking around, and there's just I was doing like teaching, so there's no guys in there. I was like, I think that's me. And Skill goes, he'll be bald before the end of the year. And they're all pissing themselves laughing. And I was like, oh God, I'm 19, like, and I was single.
They sound great.
You know?
I reckon this girl is now dating that guy.
Fucking deserve each other.
Yeah.
I remember being in a nightclub and I was chatting to a girl at the bar and I was wearing a hat because I'd always wear hats and like I am right now. And her friend came up and just grabbed my hat off my head and goes, I knew it. He's like 50. I was like, fucking hell. Yeah. So I'm telling those stories for any guys out there who are losing their hair. It's not easy.
Fucking sucks,
You
man.
think about it all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, you do. And any comment like that, like footy clubs, obviously with your mates, you sort of get used to it, but it is, for some reason, like,
It's
I
one
don't know.
thing you can joke about it.
It's one
Your
thing
mates can joke
you
about
joke
it.
about, but like when you get it from a stranger, like, you know, take your hat off or girls say it sometimes, that's when you're like, oh, that one hurt.
Yeah.
That one hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Like once you take that, like now that I've done this, I'm just like, I feel so much better about it. Like just facing that.
Yeah.
I suppose you guys do
You
now.
look great.
Thanks.
I love it.
Yeah, I've actually as well been using, I moisturize a lot. I love skincare.
Oh, yeah, what do you
love
use?
It. Well, it's actually Stuff skincare
yep.
we love.
Yep.
So Hunter Johnson, who's at the Man Cave.
Right.
Yeah, he's got a great skincare. But there's an oil I put with it, which is Bro2, which is, you
that's
know,
what I use,
Haim's,
yeah.
Zoe's, you know, incredible
Go-to.
partner.
Yeah, the
Bro2
male
go-to.
version.
Right, okay.
And I put a little, drop a couple oils in it, just sparks you up a bit. You just feel hot as.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's
Well,
do you
I
like
actually
it?
Love it.
Yeah, it's great.
I actually got told by a pharmacist once, amazingly. No, it wasn't a pharmacist. It was like a young girl working at, I was just buying, I can't remember what I was buying, but it was something for the kids, I think. And she said, do you use any skincare products? And I said, no, I don't. And she goes, yeah, you should probably think about it. I went,
How good's honestly?
okay, thanks for that. I'll just grab the nappies and head off. Thanks for it.
Do you ever think about pissing off? Because you should think about You should think about pissing off a little bit more.
So one of the formats that we do with our show, for people who have listened to the Imperfects, we have 3 different formats. One of them is called the Vulnerabilitea House,
Yes.
where we sort of enter into a bit of a we pretend we're in like a bit of a Japanese tea house style thing.
Yeah.
We play this music
I love the music.
and it drops into.
good, isn't it?
Can I play it through the microphone?
Please do.
Because
Yeah.
there's the reason. Would you? Because we've sort of done your podcast.
Yeah.
Like, which is
Being
really
gracious enough to come onto your podcast.
as in we've done your format of sort of interview and storytelling. Would you be open to doing a Vulnerability House
I'd
episode
love to, yeah.
with us?
Yeah, I think it'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I forgot to bring. I was going to bring cards in because we have them on cards. We draw
Yep.
a deck of cards, and what we do is, we give you 3 questions and you choose one of them. But I've got them written on my phone, so I'm going to grab them.
Grab your phone.
So for those who haven't heard it before,
Yeah,
we
give it a rundown.
Yeah, so it's essentially I can't remember who came up with the name Vulnerability House. Do you remember?
Josh, no, you.
Oh,
It was
did
you.
I?
It was
Oh,
you.
okay.
Yeah.
I always
It's a great
forget.
name.
Yeah,
It's a great
thanks. Thanks. Yeah, I guess it was me that came up with it. Anyway, let's move on. So essentially the idea is that like it started with just the 3 of us and take it in turns. There's a deck of cards on, and every card is a question which will hopefully prompt some sort of vulnerability, whether it be like a story about your past or a struggle you've had or something that will help you tell a vulnerable story. And we always put out 3 cards, so you have 3 options. You know, we never force anyone to answer anything, but if you've got 3 options, then at least you can, if you want to be really vulnerable, you can, or if you don't want to be that vulnerable, you can do that as well. So the 3 of us have done it a couple of times, then we've got on a few different people to do it as well. So we haven't got the cards, unfortunately, but we've got them. I think we've got the bloody Roadcaster Pro. We're going to play it out of the...
Okay, so here's your music. Here we go.
Here we go.
Welcome to the Vulnerability House, Dylan.
Feeling it.
The Imperfects presents.
Oh, we don't need that, do we?
No, we
that's
do.
fine.
We do.
That's fine.
Yeah, we do. We definitely do.
Yeah, obviously a really tight podcast.
Sit back, relax, and grab yourself your own cup of vulnerability.
Do you actually drink tea when you do it as well?
When we remember, yeah.
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 About 50% of the time.
We're not very good at remembering things. Yeah. Okay.
Love it.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I've got 3
beautiful.
questions for you
Okay.
again. If you feel comfortable,
Okay.
it's forced vulnerability does not count. Question number 1. Well, you've already answered question number 1, I think. What is your greatest insecurity? But you might have another one you want to
No,
think about.
that would definitely be it. Yeah.
Okay, there's one.
Okay, we're done. Awesome.
See you later. Great app. Can't wait to get that one out there.
Question number 2. Vulnerability can also be a really positive share. So what are you most proud of? Mm-hmm. And question number 3, what experience have you grown the most from? So there are your 3 options. And again, it's not compulsory.
Cool. I like question 2 and 3. I think they've probably got the same meaning of what I'll talk about. So what was the question again?
What are you most proud of? Was question number 2.
Yeah, cool. So for me, something I probably haven't spoken about like a lot at all, and I think it sparked on the show, and even talking today to you guys about how vulnerable you've been with me. I can already feel the tone of my voice change a bit. It's crazy how quickly this happens. Yeah. But even Zach Butters come on the show, last week as well, and he spoke about his sister and what they've been through with, addiction and those sort of things. And I was sort of sitting there the whole time, like empathizing with him, going, I can't imagine what that's like. But I knew exactly like what he was talking about. I suppose for me, like to go back at the start of this year, I had a pretty big thing happen with my old man. Where he was like really struggling with like mental health and depression and anxiety, and I suppose that was all fueled by alcohol. And he's had, just to put this in as well, like when we knew the podcast, I spoke to my dad before this, and he was like really, really keen for me to talk about it. He's going really well at the moment, so it's awesome. And I suppose he had a really bad relationship with alcohol, and I suppose it got to like when we talk about vulnerability, growing up. It was something I always knew, but it was something that I could never have those conversations about with him. And I like was too, we just had a surface level relationship where things just flowed, and I wouldn't bring up hard things because it was too hard to talk about and get
vulnerable. What age are we talking here? Like during your teenage years?
So just my whole life. I knew,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, from speaking to him, he had these troubles since he was 16.
Right.
So they're like, my whole life I knew that it just wasn't normal. Like I knew, I'd go to friends' houses and I was like, that's, my dad doesn't, do that. And these sort of things. And I suppose it got to a bit of a pinnacle at the start of the year, and it was a really like weird time for my family because my mum and dad were no longer together, and they're really amicable, but mum and they weren't living together anymore. And my sister was just about to have a baby. So she was like 2 weeks in for having a baby. So the few things were going on with dad, and I was like, fuck, like my whole life, to that moment, my mum had always just bailed me out of things, like when shit's going wrong, get mum to come and fix it. Like that's how it works. And I suppose I just had like an epiphany with it, and I was just like, this isn't like my mum's problem anymore. Like, like it's not worked in the past. It's not the way, like it hasn't fixed the problem. Not that, by no wrongdoing of anyone, it just hasn't worked.
As in your dad was still struggling with alcohol?
Yeah, really struggling with it. Yeah, he was really struggling, and it was just, as I said, something that we weren't really talking about. And it got to a stage for me where, a few incidents like had happened, and I just was like, fuck this, like I've just got to do something. So yeah, like I, grabbed him and we'd had a few chats, and it was really hard at the start. Like imagine talking to your dad about this when you've like waited like 28 years to sort of say something. And like it wasn't like a dream. It like I think a really good part for anyone going through this is like it wasn't a dream scenario. Like it wasn't like, oh yeah, cool, I agree. Like let's sort this out. It took probably 3 weeks of like back and forwards and other things happening for me to finally, get him to agree to come and see a doctor with me.
How did you, if you don't mind me asking, how did you first like broach, because that it's the first contact, which is the really scary bit.
Yeah, it got to a stage where like I couldn't not do it. So like it just got into a stage where I just had to. I had like a few other people like calling me and sort of like, expressing to me that I needed to step in with things. And as I said earlier, it wasn't something that I was always good at, like having those conversations. But I knew at that stage, like my sister was just about to have a baby, as I said, my mum was really supporting her. And I was like, I can't fucking let them be, involved in this. And so like, we had the conversations and kept going with it. But yeah, it was just like a really, really fucking just like tough time, like just like having those chats because like, you know, you are having like really hard conversations and you sort of feel like the world's like crashing around you. But like, I think like sometimes when you don't have a choice, it's like the best because you just know you just got to get it done. It's like that fight or flight and you just like, fuck yeah, this is like, I've got to do this. And I think one of the things that I really liked, weirdly really liked out of it, and I've listened to a few people of your chats and I can really relate to this, is like as shit as this situation was, it was like I could also almost catch myself like sometimes like driving home being like, you're a fucking mad cunt. Like you are the toughest cunt in the world. Yeah. Like I was sort of like talking to myself, just being like, you are seriously like something special. Like how are you doing this? How are you, you know, just how do you rock up? Like there was just like this inner monologue like coming in, like talking to myself about it.
And I relate to that.
Yeah. And I suppose like, the thing I said before about my dad's relationship, we'd never really spoken about these things. And, you know, the hardest point for me was like dropping him off at the rehabilitation clinic.
Wow.
And I remember it's just like, just sitting there just like crying together, just like.
As in you both were?
You and your dad?
Wow.
And I've never seen my dad cry like ever.
Really?
And it's funny because like in such a shit time, it was almost like the best time.
Yep.
Real.
And also the fact like at this stage as well, no one else knew what was going on. So like my mum and sister had no idea because like my sister, like we would go from like visiting Jess in hospital and then like dropping dad back at the clinic and
not telling them.
And not telling them. Yeah. And not because like that wasn't like, I'm not trying to say like I was a hero or anything. It's just like, as I said earlier, for so long I just wanted other people to fix my problems for so long that I was like, fuck, I don't need, like, why do I need to bring other people down with me? Like, you know, we've got it under control. I don't need other people worrying and stressing at the same time.
When you say you wanted other people to solve your, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
I just think like for so long when I was younger, like if I had a problem, I think I'd put my problem on someone else and be like, come on, make me feel better about this.
Oh,
like,
sure.
you know, like come on, make me feel like it's not my fault.
You said before your mum would sort out a lot of problems for
mum
you.
would always come and be like, oh, it's not your fault. You know, like we can fix this, we can do this.
Yeah, gotcha.
But yeah, I suppose it just got to the point where I was just like, we have to do this, and we did it. And yeah, that moment I spoke about earlier was fucking massive, like for me, just in terms of, and us, sorry, in like our relationship. And it's just funny, like in such a fucking shit hard time, like it's nearly like my favorite time because like it was for like the first time we'd been like fully connected with it. And yeah, like I think like, you know, my dad and my relationship's been like so good, you know, since like, you know, he's 6 months clean. We've never been closer. We've never been more vulnerable. And yeah, like I think for so long I just put off that chat for like that long, and to not have it there anymore and just be open and people know about it. And like that's probably why I want to talk about it today, because it's just sometimes when people know your vulnerabilities and your insecurity just makes it so much easier. You're just like, fuck, I don't have to talk about that. Like I don't have to hide that anymore.
Yeah. Hold on to it. Yeah.
You don't have to pretend like you don't know what someone's talking about when they bring it up. And you can,
context of my dad as well, like, you know, he's a 3-time premiership player, like very public image. Like he's one of the best people to ever be around. And he is the best, most beautiful person in the world. But obviously I had trouble with, you know, mental health and drinking. So like for me, people would always be like, your dad's the best. You know, he's so good. But I knew that there was other struggles that they didn't know about. So it was really conflicting for me because like.
Sorry, who's your dad?
My dad is Jim Buckley. So he used to play for Carlton.
Okay, right.
And not Nathan.
I was thinking, like, hang on. What have I missed? This is quite a big thing. Yeah.
And Nathan Buckley's 3 premierships.
Not him. So it was like going through that, I suppose, with those bits. But yeah, like seeing how he's done what he's done now, like I'm just so proud of him. Like it's just unbelievable. So
and he must be pretty proud of you, I would think.
Ooh. Yeah.
I mean, there's a role reversal that happens at some point there where it's
I was his dad pretty much.
You're looking after the guy who you always wanted to look after you.
Because our dads are just like on this pedestal of like, the dynamic is you don't really challenge your dad or your parents.
Yeah.
You don't really challenge them on anything.
No.
But obviously it feels like you got to a point where you're like, I'm an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really like, that's why that weird relationship was bittersweet, because a part of me, I was like, fuck yeah, like you've grown up and you've finally taken charge, because there were so many times things that in my life, like separate to this and just other things that I'd probably needed to step up to the plate and just failed at. Like I just hadn't taken control of and been like, oh, fuck it, next time, could have worked harder here, but I didn't, little things like that. But this was the first time where it was like actually one of the biggest issues I'd been through, but I'd actually stood up to it. I was like, this is sick.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah, incredible.
So yeah, it was good. And it's funny, like, what do you say about like, our relationship now, it's never been better. But I just remember it was so funny sometimes at like these times where we'd be talking and no one really knew what was going on. And he'd like call me like asking for things. And I was like, you're my dad, like you don't have to ask me, but like he actually did. So like in a way, like I was sort of his like guardian.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Like, and our relationship's so good since. And even for him, like I called him yesterday and I was like, fuck, I've got this podcast and I have a feeling something might come up. Do you reckon I could talk about it? And he's like, 100%, like go for it.
Amazing.
Wow.
Really cool, which is massive for him because I think this has been the one that's really helped him the most because people know. Like, I learned things about him in that time that I'd never known, like never even knew about him. Like, we spoke about him as a kid and, things like, so I was sitting through all the like psych meetings and doctor meetings and, I learned like that he'd actually been to try and get off the drink with mental health and all that, like probably 10, 15 years earlier when I was a kid and had been there for one day and then went straight back, to the pub because he just couldn't deal with the emotion and stuff like that. So, it's really interesting. And I think like even like going even deeper into it, you look at like a holistic level and, I see someone fortnightly like, you guys do just to keep on top of my life really and just learn more about myself. And I haven't realised how much, his role in my life that's why I do what I do.
Wow.
And it wasn't, like when I talk to people and like, what Hugh does, like the reason I did that, I think looking back now, wasn't necessary for me. It was like to show him that if he would listen to something that I've done, he'd know that I'd want to help him.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Gosh.
Just sort of put a beacon out there.
Yeah,
for him to
just
grab
like,
onto.
oh, Dad, I'm working with this mental health thing. But like
dropping hints.
yeah, just like dropping hints sort of thing. Like, look at these things I've done for him to then to be like, hopefully come. But I think, if anyone is going through that situation, like sometimes you do have to be vulnerable and just
do the
have
hard,
the chat.
do the big
just
hard.
go in.
So it's a really beautiful gift you've given to your sister as well, like a grandpa who's clean for their grandchild.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And even to say like with, it's hard because I hate saying that the reality is, yes, he did have a problem with alcohol and stuff, but it was never like, he was the best dad in the world as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like I didn't see it. Like he was always there. He was, he's present in my life but just had a dependency on that that was unhealthy. And that was probably the thing that hurt me the most was just like, I wanted to help a lot with it. So
It's who knows, but it's potentially given you a relationship with him that you maybe never would have had if you never got into trouble.
that's my biggest fear, that, if I didn't have this conversation, what would have happened? And yeah, I honestly, like before it happened without, being forced to happen or, because you always have a choice. Like you can always ignore it and keep going. The best things for me that have happened are like, when I got fired from my job and had to improve, or you get delisted the second time and you have to like look at yourself, or these things that happen, you go, fuck, I have to take that option. By no means am I trying to give advice here about anything, but I think it's harder sometimes when you don't have a choice, but still know that the reward is there.
Can I go back to Ryan's question he asked earlier? I'm just so interested in practically, because I think a lot of people will be listening to this going, it may not be their dad, but it might be someone that, fuck, I've got to have this conversation. Did you like send him a message saying, can we chat later? How did you initiate it? Did you sit down and say, at dinner, just go, there's something I want to talk to you about? Or do you remember how you did that?
Yeah, I just got him over to my house and we were just sitting down and like, my other son relationships, it's quite like we have a great relationship, but it was just surface level chat.
And is that normal for him to just come around and?
Not really. No, it wasn't.
So did you
wasn't
message
normal.
him and say,
I said, I
please
need
come
you
over?
to come around. Yeah, I need you to
I
come
need
over.
you to come around.
Yeah.
So
So
he would have known something.
Oh, even the days before, I'd sort of just been really checking on him and where like what he was doing
Yep.
and stuff. So I was like trying to just keep tabs on the situation. But yeah, I just got him to come around, and I think I just made up an excuse that I needed him to come over. I remember just sitting down, and I literally just like sort of started talking. Then I started crying for like.
Really?
I just would like, and he was probably just like, what the fuck? Like, you know, because I think for him, he'd probably suppressed it for a long time. And that's why it wasn't a one conversation. Like it was like it took, 2-3 weeks to really get through that. I was stressed about, I was worried about him and I wanted to help and those sort of things. Because the first time like he said, he's like, oh, I'm fine. You don't have to worry about me. It's just a bad period. I'll get right, sort of thing. And because he'd been off before, but the thing about Dad was like it was probably, I think hopefully it doesn't go. He's okay with me saying like I think a lot of his mental health issues came. He was probably had depression and drank to ease the depression. It wasn't like he was just drinking and was an alcoholic. Like obviously that's how it works. But yeah, it was that. So the conversation we had, and I just said like, I really need you to do this. I really need you. And then it actually just got to the point where I was like, nah, like we're doing this now. Like you don't have a fucking choice anymore. And I just like got pretty angry. I was just like, we're going.
How did you respond?
He said, yeah, okay. Yeah.
So he knew.
Yeah, he knew. Yeah, he didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Because then, because I was keeping it, I just got to the stage where I was like, I'll fucking tell everyone else if we don't sort it out.
Did you like practice the talk in your head like before getting there, and did it go anywhere like you were expecting?
No, I didn't. I like the first few I like just couldn't even get out. Really, it was pretty hard to sort of talk because it was the first time in 28 years I'd even mentioned it.
Wow!
So it was just like
huge.
Yeah, you just live with it.
Other than feeling like a fucking legend now, how else do you like? How do you feel? Mad cunt. Mad cunt. Sorry, I said fucking legend. But yeah, other than feeling like a mad cunt, how do you feel differently? Just as separate from your relationship with your dad, like how do you feel now?
I have like this unwavering like thought that I know I can get through anything.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
But I'm not saying that in a like I say that almost not believing it, but I say it to like keep just reminding myself I can.
Get him back on a list.
Yeah. That's impossible.
Get him back on a list.
I think
Ninja Warrior?
Yeah,
what do you reckon?
there's definitely other things that like, I'm going through at the moment or I've been through in the past. And the thing with resilience, I think is like my funniest thing and why resilience is so hard but also so good is like these situations, like going through something like this doesn't make the next thing any easier. Like it literally, if anything, it might even be harder. But resilience for me, like just is, it makes me go, I got through that. I can do it again. I can do it again. I can do it again.
Yeah.
And you just start believing in yourself a lot. You're just like, fuck, like.
A confidence.
Yeah, it's a confidence thing. And
I assume also how much better it is to have done it.
Yeah.
Because as you said, you've got no choice sometimes.
You got no choice. And Hugh, you'd comment on this better than anyone, but you get to that stage that you just go like, whatever comes, like I'll be sweet. Like whatever happens, I'll just keep going. And even with that, it's like I probably won't be okay when something happens. So it's like that's life. Things are going to happen.
Messy.
Shit's going to like. There's this. If I think it's just one issue that's going to arise in my life, I'm kidding. There's probably going to be like 10 more.
Yeah.
But I just know that like when other shit happens, I've done it before. Can do it again.
Yeah. You now have like the courage that maybe you didn't think you had.
And I didn't have that before because there'd been a lot of times where like on not as serious things, but even just like with footy and life, like I'd really let myself down a bit and just like probably not worked hard enough. But then like instead of being honest, I'd just been like, we'll move on to the next thing,
Yeah, brush it under the rug.
Brush it under the rug, fuck it, do it. So this was the first one where I was just like, I just had to hit it head on.
Big one to test it on.
Yeah, it was good. It was a big one.
You didn't want to practice on something a bit smaller.
Yeah. No, it was a big one.
Do you think there's like it was just in my head, I don't know if, I'll just say it might not make any sense, but do you reckon like the process of you're saying looking for other people to solve your problems is the way you put it. And that attitude you had there of like, I didn't really give it a go, but brush it aside and starting to face things is kind of the process of turning from a child to an adult.
100%. Definitely. Like I think I listened to your show and you were talking about earlier in your life, like you didn't have much adversity and like you grow up and things just go your way.
So this is my episode.
Your episode,
of the Imperfects,
on the Imperfects, and not to put words, but that's what I got out of it for myself.
Yeah.
I had an incredible childhood. Like my parents, we weren't like rich or anything like that. We actually were quite the opposite. But I never went without. My mum, who's just I couldn't even talk about her because she's just a superstar.
Yeah.
Just never went without anything. Like anything happened, she was there to fix it. Like she's just a superwoman. And yeah, until like shit started popping up in my life where I was like, well, I can't just fucking keep going and like running to mum to fix something. And that was exactly that. Like you grow up, shit happens. Like, I got fired 3 times in like 2 years basically. And maybe the first time it's not you, but 3 times in a row it's probably got something to do with you, which you've got to look internally. Yeah. And yeah, with these situations here, you actually like, I know this sounds weird and I hate even saying it because I don't want bad shit to happen to me, but you actually get addicted to like adversity because you know how much you grow from it.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that mate. Yeah,
love
like
it.
I love
so interesting.
sometimes like when I'm going through shit now, I'm like, fuck, this sucks. But I'm gonna be so much better for it.
Yeah.
So I just try and like my favourite sort of quote is just like, it's not what happens, it's how I react to it. And I just use that in everyday life. Like even good things, bad things, whatever happens, it's what I do next is the next thing.
It's the only thing you can control.
It's the only thing I can control.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, that's what's really makes me be able to be happy and live through things. But yeah, there is a weird part of me that like
gets off on it a bit.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. It's just fucking, I listen again, we keep referring, you've got to listen to every podcast we're talking about Martin's podcast and is my story nothing like his, but he went through something incredibly bad. But if you can like use it in a good way, which is the common theme, you actually end up using it as a positive.
I think the shame over things that have happened to us and situations where we feel like we haven't responded properly, or like maybe a sense of guilt when people were saying you got to step in and you hadn't stepped in yet. I kind of feel like that linked to that idea of what I said before about child to adult is like an inherent idea that you were just a kid and we were just kids when we're working all that stuff out. Even if you are 26 or something, 27, if you're still reacting like that, part of you's still a kid. And I think I know for myself, you got to treat yourself with the care that you treat kids. Like have a bit of forgiveness of yourself and give yourself a break for losing how many jobs in a year or whatever these things in the past, because you're still a kid working it out. And it's moments like what you've done that when you become an adult. I don't know. I just sounded like a total wanker then.
No.
I get it. It sounded way too preachy in the end, but I think just a little bit more compassion for ourselves along the journey is probably what's required.
It's one of the steps of dealing with, like, looking back over your shame and being okay with it is empathizing with that version of yourself. So I only bring it up because in the book that I just finished, I wrote a bit about the shame I felt about.
Crude time to plug your book.
I didn't even mention it.
Go on though. Pre-order now.
Yeah, so it's available. It's us. No.
T-shirts as well.
Sorry.
So I don't need to mention the book, but in my life, I have felt for a long time, which Josh will know about, or may not know about, but it's about to read about, is just shame I felt about when our sister got really sick.
Yeah.
I was 18. I just got my driver's license, had a girlfriend for the first time, and I wasn't around a lot when my sister was really sick. And I've always felt like not what I did was bad, but like I'm a bad person because of that. I'm such a bad person. And I've told myself that for ages, just so bad that you did that. But then and the reason I mentioned the book was because I was just researching things you do with shame. One of them is you empathize with that version of yourself. I'm like, hang on a minute, I was an 18-year-old. Like I had a driver's license and I had a girlfriend for the first time. Like, why? Of course I'd want to be at her house or like going doing whatever, like going out with mates or like I wasn't a bad person. I just wanted to. The two options were pretty dark at our house at that time. Sister's really sick, or having a driver's license and going really cool places like all 18, 19-year-olds
Yeah, and
do.
you're
Like,
18. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I, for ages, have said to myself, you're such a bad person because you kind of abandoned your sister. But actually looking at whatever you went through, whatever was difficult when you're young, anything you feel bad about and going, hang on a minute, let's actually, like, it makes sense why I did that. Like, that I understand why an 18-year-old Hugh did that. Now I'd probably go, you got the rest of your life to go and do fun stuff, but maybe now it's best to stick around a bit. But when you're 18, like, and I've forgiven myself for that. Like, so it's a good thing to do to look back over your life and the stuff that you feel bad about. Like, you can empathize with yourself a bit and just explore a bit and go, of course it makes, well, that's why I did that.
Yeah.
As long as you're not a shitty person, as long as you decide to grow from it and go, well, that's what I learned. And if this comes up again, I'm going to try not to make that mistake again.
For sure.
Essentially.
I like, this is probably from your book, but one of my favourite sort of quotes like that is basically that you know, if your best mate was going through something, like how would you treat them?
Yeah.
And then if you were going through the same situation, how would you treat yourself? So it's just like, be your own best friend. Like in a situation like you're going through, imagine it's your mate. What would you say to them?
Yeah.
And what you say to yourself is completely different.
Yeah, you often berate yourself.
Yeah, you
You
berate
go, "You're a
yourself.
fucking idiot,
Where
mate."
if it was your mate, you'd be like, mate, you'll get through this. That's awesome. And you're like, how fucking weird's that? Like, why am I my own enemy? It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole new meaning of the name of your show.
Yeah.
Dyl Friends.
Dylan, my friends. Yeah,
Dylan,
it's just
me.
one. Dylan, me. Yeah, I'm my only friend.
Well, that's just thank you for sharing that.
Mate, thank you.
Unbelievably powerful.
How do you feel now?
I feel fucking light.
Great.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of running at the moment too, so maybe that's
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I think that's it. No, I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Dyl. That's
Amazing.
really
incredible.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Thank you.
You've really gosh.
No, all good.
I don't know what to say. Like one of the things that we've learned through this process is that when someone shares something, the first thing you want to do is to try and help solve the problem for them. But it's actually not the best thing to do. It's just to listen and validate the way they feel. And I think all we can say from our podcast and also our community, a lot of people who listen, just like, I don't want this to sound patronising, but fuck, you should be so proud of yourself.
I appreciate
You really
that.
should be.
Thank you.
And it's just incredible.
Thank you, boys. No, I really appreciate it.
Can I suggest something for your podcast?
Yep.
That you kick it off.
Yep.
You take off. You're the first one. You can give, whether you call it an award or whatever, but it's like people who have done something and they're proud of themselves. You could start handing out Mad Cunt Awards. Mad Cunt of the Week.
How good's a mad cunt? Like I feel like when you can't really use the word mad cunt a lot, but when you're being vulnerable, you
used
can.
it well.
No,
Yeah.
but you can.
Yeah.
Like because I wasn't actually. So by the way, I wasn't saying mad cunt. My internal brain was saying mad cunt. So it wasn't actually me that was saying it.
So you don't beep your internal thoughts.
No,
Yeah.
they have no filter. It's not me.
I'll be
It's internal
fascinated to
thought.
know how you beep those two sentences.
No,
like one of
we
them
don't,
is and
we
one
don't beep.
Just to so I'm picturing like a school, like primary school award, like those with frilly like
Mad
moral
cunt.
floral,
Oh,
like,
nice.
just
I was thinking
mad
trophy.
cunt. Oh, trophies would be better. They should rather trophy.
Like a pennant thing, are you thinking?
Yeah.
Or-
just those certificates you used to get, just a piece of paper that you get at
sure.
assembly for like. Mad
Yeah,
cunt,
I think like non-swearing in pod, it's like it's not authentic. I can't not swear. It feels like I'm not.
Yeah.
My my vocab isn't as
Well,
good.
the
as
reason I love you've said that is because like some of your listeners might have listened to Brené Brown before and gone, oh yeah, I think I know what she's meaning about speak your authentic truth. But like people listening will go, oh yeah, mad cunt. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I'm that.
Brené Brown's going to start saying it
I
herself.
totally relate with that.
But do you know what I mean? Like you've got to say it in a relatable
Yeah.
way. Like
Yeah.
speak your authentic truth. I go, oh, I guess I get that. I really get that. Yeah.
You know what you feel like when you are a man.
Yeah, and you can say it to yourself in your car. And when you've been through something really difficult and you got through it, I would much prefer to say I'm a mad cunt than I just spoke my authentic truth. That to me. So
Hey,
if that's
I think
a
the
takeaway-
message today: be a mad cunt.
Yeah.
What's next for you guys? What's plans?
For
what's
me,
goals?
it's doing
Like-
a wee. I am busting.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
shit. Okay,
Yeah.
I got two
Yeah.
toilets here.
Yeah.
Great.
And after that, we haven't got anything planned after that wee.
But we
That's it.
for the podcast, we're like again. He's plugging his book again, but that's
No,
coming
no,
out.
the
The
book,
book's
yeah.
coming out, so you can burn the. So you heard it from Hugh. Burn the old book. That's no longer relevant.
Bullshit. Must
Get the new one. Get the new one.
Josh will have an album coming out shortly.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going
to
to.
turn
You're
these
going to play.
into-
You should. Hey, not telling you what to do, but if you wanted to, you should play a live gig. That would be cool. Oh, that is vulnerability live show.
And call it Imperfect.
Yeah,
And have to use these.
Have to use
Yeah, you
that.
have to use those lyrics.
Slam poetry. Slam poetry.
And we can support.
It's fancy dress.
Yeah.
It'll be Josh Van Kallenberg and the Mad Cunts. I'd go and see that show. Well, Dyl, thanks so much for
Mate,
having
thank
us
you. Thank you so
in
much.
your beautiful space that I want to copy.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can. You're welcome anytime. We'll definitely catch up. We're all sort of Northsiders.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we'll go.
He's
to-
extremely south side, but
You would.
no, as in like country.
Yeah. I'm down like sort of South Gippsland.
He's a mad country boy.
Are you really?
Well, I have been since March last year.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, I escaped.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Um,
we'll do that.
And also, if he's listening to this, just Daniel Gorringe, I'm just a huge fan. Hi, Dan.
Well, he sits there and does weird.
Yep, I've been
shit.
looking at he's the weirdest man alive.
Oh,
I
he's
really
the
love
best. Do you know he has 1 million TikTok followers now?
it. I thought you were going to say $1 million for some
1
reason.
million. Well, you might have that too. 1 million people on TikTok.
I mean, it's a great effort, but it doesn't surprise me. Do you know Daniel Gorringe? He's also, he
familiar.
would put himself in the list clogger category of played AFL football and
Yes.
sometimes went through a couple of games where he didn't get a possession.
Yep.
One of the, you would love him, Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh, Josh, you would as well, but his stuff is quite similar to yours. In an authentic, he didn't copy it.
This is a very 40-year-old thing to say. I've never looked at TikTok.
Neither have
Yeah,
I.
I mean,
Oh, don't.
I don't want
You will
to.
get addicted to it.
I'm sure I
it
will.
is. It
Yeah.
is honestly an addiction. I think it. Yeah, it's pretty scary.
No, I'm pretty keen never to look at it.
Good. Hey, do you guys play golf?
very bad.
Do you?
Okay, well, let's go play one day.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks so much, boys. Honestly, fuck, it's been incredible. Hopefully, we can do it again one day.
Please.
And
Just for everyone who to know, we're going to hug when the microphone. I can't
we are.
reach you
Yeah,
from here. I
no,
want to give you a big
yeah.
hug.
Let's make
You've
it
been amazing.
Sure. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Are you joking?
no, I'm not. No, I don't reckon we should.